So I can scoot back in and check in with that occipitalis part of it. This could take me right back to from occipitalis, frontal occipitalis to the suboccipitals.
Oh, this
Right
is his.
into it.
That's his. No, let's see, keep going. I think it automatically starts in the file. Yeah.
Okay. So, we got platysma, SCM, anterior tract, SCM, relationship into scalene, relationship into spleniae, levator, scalene. You wanted levator work on the right, scalene work on the left. That got a little scalene on this side, but not as much. And then we went to occipitalis, occipital just to check in, not to spend a lot of time, we'll come back to that. And then went into temporal and in the frontal and occipital. That work?
Okay.
Questions? Can you tell us what that was like?
It's like this. I've been feeling that levator. It's been feeling really like spongy lately. The last like 3 or 4 days. So if I stretch it out real good, I don't know. It definitely felt like not even really necessarily tight. Just kind of
Something was.
funky. So I'm excited to see how it feels.
Now, if by chance what I was doing didn't get that levator quite as specifically from reaching under this way, you can also isolate it and come all the way up under and really get that, and on the same side come in from this way. So you sort of really nail into it from the top and bottom and really focus right on that one side. So if you really find somebody's really levator, and I honestly like working levator with the client face up. It's so much more effective. Because it's really inviting the motion much more. Versus when they're in the face cradle and I'm trying to work levator, the body's limited in motion. Right. Yeah. So this way I have greater access in some things.
I did have a question. So when you're working with like the suture and the shape of the bones in the face, is there like a get out of jail free card? Like, you know how sometimes like the plates will shift and they'll be diagonal and you'll need to go do something else and come back. Like if you're having a time crunch, like is there a way to help get balance in the face?
Yeah, so
without...
if, like here, he went into, I was at that crux where all three of them come together. He gave me a little bit, I got a little shear and we got some separation, and I ended up literally being sort of mostly to the side and right along that suture. He was mostly going this direction. So you're asking if I was there and it felt a little offset, but I needed to do something else, could I come back to it and balance it? Is that what you're asking?
Oh, I mean like if you're having a time crunch and something else needs to be done in the field before you can balance it out?
Yeah.
Is there a way to achieve balance without
so
addressing
if
that
I
other
didn't
thing?
get to come back up, but I saw there's something I needed to go to, what I may consider doing is leaving one hand there if I can reach to that other thing. So I can let the body know I need to move on to this shoulder. Remember we talked about this was supposed to be, but there's still something going on up there. So I might touch those two, give it that signal, let it know what I'm needing to do, back off from here, and let it do its own resolution.
Okay, so it'll probably keep resolving.
It'll continue to move. Yeah.
Okay, so if your client gets off the table and feels super woozy or like feels discombobulated, is there something you can do once they're off the table to help them?
Well, first thing is whenever you're doing any workup around the head, and especially if the cranial bones start moving, always tell your client sit for a minute to make sure you're not woozy before you go to get up. Because that can always shift pressure. You can leave it in balanced position and a person can still feel woozy.
Okay.
So don't think of woozy as necessarily a bad thing. It's just an outcome.
Okay.
Potential. So if you have them sit before they move, once they start to get dressed, even sit while they're dressing if they can. So they're not getting themselves so unstable. And then have them sit for a minute while you talk to them, kind of decompress them for a moment. And then if they're still woozy feeling, I have an occasional client that's really woozy. I'm like, Okay, remember when you get to your car, just sit. Check your email, check your messages, something, just so you spend a good 10 minutes before you drive off.
Okay.
And most of them are like that was all you needed. Many of them, it's like, my walk to my car is the way I know I settle out.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
yeah. Hopefully we're not going to stir it up so much so that they're way out of whack to the point that, because if it's so out of whack and they've got a vertigo piece, there may be some other issue we're dealing with besides just where we're at. And there's a whole protocol that people can do when they get vertebro to shift it, because it's about little crystals in the ear.
Oh, they become less fluid over time or something?
Yeah, it gets a little crystalline, and then if they get out of position, it gets that vertigo response. So there's a protocol, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I'll look it up and bring it in.
Okay.
Of what they need to do, certain movements, and they do those movements, and they'll get it to settle back in, and the vertigo diminishes
Okay.
when folks have a regular vertigo issue.
Cool. Yeah, it's something
that-
I've noticed when I get craniosacral done is like sometimes I can't, like I'll start talking about something and I'll forget what I was talking
Right.
about or.
Well, that's really because what's happening is as you alter the shape and the position of the bones, you alter the pressure within the bony structures. And the fluid then pressurizes around the cranium. And tensions in the meninges around the nerve and the connections to the cranium affect the fluid, affect the function of the brain itself. So you literally are changing pressure within the brain itself.
Yeah.
And so as the body's processing that, you're like, this is not normal. And it has that disruptive moment.
Yeah.
And then it'll settle and you'll be fine.
Okay.
And usually what most people find is they tend to be clearer headed after it settles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that
In
moment
that
when I get
moment,
off the
you're
table, I feel
"Whoa."
like,
Yeah. Too much.
yeah, we shouldn't talk about money or
Right.
or any of this stuff yet.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're changing all the pressure, functionality of the nerves is really impacted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and because we're so close to that central nervous system, it's direct impact.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And then if you have people who've had concussions, brain lesions, traumatic brain injuries, of anything that's going on there, the potential is you may have a momentary surge of memory of that, because the tissue memory is there.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about that. Because I want to work on my dad, and he had a really bad accident a while ago.
And
Yeah.
it can stir up a bit, so you have to be aware of that and ready and let them know that's a possibility, and that, we'll just stay for a little bit longer if you need to just settle that. Oftentimes when I know I've got somebody who has that story, I'll make sure I don't finish at the head. I always make sure I finish down at the feet, so I draw their mental attention there, energetic attention there, so that it takes some of that, like, it's all up, okay. Okay. So, that always helps. Because brain stuff is really crazy. How quickly we respond to things. It's really amazing.
Yeah. Like, I'm actually worried about doing this sort of work because I only have like a 15-minute turnover, and like having experienced that kind of
Yeah.
change, like I know sometimes it takes as much as 10 minutes to even feel like you can walk. Like,
So that means you need to consider
uh-huh.
how do you organize your treatment.
Okay.
So if I know we're going to get to this place, and I know my client has responsiveness in this way, your first time you're going to find it out usually the hard way. But from there forward, you can shift how you do when you do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
timing, I might do the head work first, and then go to other parts of the body, so that by the time we're done, that head stuff is settled before they even get off the table.
Okay.
And other times you want to leave them in that state because there's value in that. So it's a figuring it out, what works for you, what works for the clients, and how to manage that good relationship between us.
Okay.
And to be careful not to impose too much of what you think works.
Yeah.
When I start getting this, like, okay, that's my signal. I got to stop and step back.
I know.
It's not for me to do that. Yeah. Because there are times when somebody's telling me something, like, and I just want to dive into it. Like, I have that moment. Like, okay, note that I'm wanting to dive into it, which means I need to not dive into it. my reaction is always my proof for me. If I
Okay.
react with too much eagerness, that means I need to wait.
So, like, all the time.
Because I know we get excited. I get excited. I'm like, I'm getting there because it's going to be so much fun. You know, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking because it's so much fun because I know what the possibilities are. But then you got to remember, they might not be in the same place as I am.
Mhm.
Which is why I have to remind myself, like, okay, I'm too excited, too eager, to back off. We'll get there. I have to tell myself, we'll get there, so that I can really listen to them. Right?
Mm.
Thanks. Anything else?
No?
Thanks, Ben.
My pleasure.